Welcome to the Unported YouTube channel. My name is Kylie and today is the first episode in a new series of high protein meals which are perfect for summer. So I'm going to be putting together a collection of meals which are a little bit lighter, a little bit fresher, but are still going to leave you feeling satiated and full. So for this first recipe, I'm going to be making a soba noodle salad and serving it with teriyaki tofu. So this has multiple sources of protein. You're going to get protein from the edamame beans, from the soba noodles, and from the tofu. And if you're someone who's recently gone vegan or you've been vegan for a long time and you're struggling to feel satiated, I recommend having multiple sources of protein in your meal to help you really full up. Okay, so here are pretty much all the ingredients I'm going to use to make this dish. Like I mentioned before, one of my tips is to use multiple protein sources, and so I've got tofu, edamame beans, and buckwheat soba noodles, all of which are packed with protein. I've just blanched these edamame beans from frozen, so they're pretty much ready to go in the dish. On the right hand side, I've got all the condiments I'm going to need, as well as lemon, ginger, and some mayonnaise. We're going to start with the teriyaki marinade for the tofu. So teriyaki is relatively simple. It's just a combination of soy sauce, mirin or sake, a little bit of ginger, and a sweetener of your choice. So I'm using tamari instead of soy sauce because it's gluten-free, but if you only have soy, that's totally fine. And then this is mirin, so I'm using that instead of sake. I'm going to add a little bit of agave. If you would rather use maple syrup or a different type of sweetener, that's totally fine. And then to get the ginger really fine, I'm going to microplane it. I'm going to do about 1 teaspoon of ginger and chuck it in there and give it a really good mix. And then I'm also going to add 1 tablespoon of water just to water this down a little bit. And then I highly recommend tasting your marinades before adding anything to them, just to make sure that they're to your liking. I'm going to cut this tofu nice and thin. I'm sort of going to do steak-like pieces, so I'm going to cut it in 4 this way, stack them on top of each other, and cut them again so that I get 8 pieces. I'm going to add the tofu to the marinade, make sure that it's well coated, and then I'm just going to let it sit for about 5 minutes. I very rarely marinate my tofu ahead of time, so I usually do it at the very beginning of prepping a meal and let it marinate while I do a few other things. So I'm going to cut up the bok choy here. I'm just going to cut off the bottom and then separate all the leaves away from each other. I kind of like to leave them whole. It's just a personal preference. If you'd rather cut them up, that's totally fine. I'm going to give them a quick rinse in some cold water. And then while the bok choy is draining, I'm going to put the tofu in the oven. Putting the tofu directly onto the baking tray, but if you want to save on some cleaning up, then you can use a sheet of baking paper. And I'm going to pour half the marinade over the tofu and save the rest for later. And then on the stove, I've got a pot of boiling water, which I'm going to salt generously because I'm going to cook the buckwheat noodles in there. And I've also got a colander, which I'm going to steam the bok choy in. So I'm putting the buckwheat noodles in, the soba noodles in. If you want to keep it gluten-free, just make sure to get 100% buckwheat soba noodles. And then I'm putting the colander steamer on top, and the bok choy is going in there to steam. So it's kind of like a nice way to get everything cooked at the same time. And then we're going to make the wasabi mayo to dress the soba noodles. So I've made this mayonnaise myself. There's a recipe on my website, but you can use store-bought if you prefer. And I've just added 1 teaspoon of wasabi paste. And then I'm going to add 1/4 of a lemon's worth of lemon juice into this. And I'm also going to salt it really well and then give it a good mix. So at this point, the bok choy will also be done. If some of the water has come up from the bottom pot into the steamer, that's totally fine. They literally only need 2 or 3 minutes. I'm going to give them a little bit of a rinse with some cold water. And my noodles are also done at this point. So I'm going to drain them and then fill this pot up with some cold water just to rinse them off really well. Soba noodles can sometimes be really starchy, so this just stops them from sticking together and also completely halts the cooking process. My tofu is about halfway done at this point, so I'm going to take that leftover marinade and just re-coat the tofu in the marinade. So the tofu is really warm now. It will absorb the marinade much more easily. And I'm just going to do that with every piece, and then I'm going to pour any leftover marinade on top and place it back in the oven. Okay, and then like I said before, we're going to use the wasabi mayo to dress the soba noodles. So I'm just going to pour all that mayo onto the noodles and give it a really good mix up to make sure that the noodles are well coated. And in this dish, I'll be serving the soba noodles cold, which is perfect for summer to have cold elements in your dish. And then to the soba noodles, I'm going to add some sesame seeds and slice up a spring onion really finely on a diagonal, add it to the noodles and mix it until all those elements are well combined. And then at this point, the tofu is done, so I'm just going to take it out of the oven. It's looking beautiful and golden, and that's it. So all my elements are ready to go. I've got my noodles, my edamame beans, my cooked bok choy, the tofu, and I'm just going to plate. So I'm sort of going to layer the noodles and the bok choy, top it with the tofu, sprinkle on the edamame, and then finish with some sesame seeds and a little wedge of lemon. Alright, thank you so much for watching. The full recipe for this meal will be on our website, which I will link down below. And if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe because it really supports the channel. Next week, I'll be making a crispy chickpea and quinoa salad, so keep an eye out for that, and I'll see you then.